from our State House studio in Montgomery. I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. Today was the 29th legislative day, so we have one more to go before the Alabama Legislature adjourns sine die. Today was mostly low-key, with the House and Senate making an effort to pass bills from the other chamber. One bill that was the subject of lots of drama yesterday was passed by both chambers today with relative ease. Senate Bill 119 from Senator Shay Shelnut would pave the way for the Alabama Farm Center, a state-of-the-art agriculture event venue planned for Jefferson County. It failed to get out of conference committee yesterday, sparking accusations of gamesmanship related to the failed gambling package. But today, Representative Andy Witt, who chaired that conference committee, cleared the air and said he supports the Farm Center bill.
And I would never hold up a good piece of legislation on behalf of another piece of legislation that wasn't moving. The House of Representatives doesn't do that. So as I said, I received the text message at 1:32 of a meeting at 1:40, and we just couldn't make it. So again, to be very clear, I passed this out of my committee twice in support and voted for it. So there's nothing to that rumor or whatever's being talked about on the Senate floor.
On the floor, members talked about the economic benefits the Farm Center will bring to the state.
The conference committee agreed to one change in the bill that dealt with the appointment, one of them by the governor as it left the House and went to the Senate for concurrence. It had one appointment by the minority a leader that the governor had of each houses from a list of 4 people. The change is that it will be one member submitted, one nominee by the joint minority leaders of the houses for that term.
We got to make sure that we become more frugal with how we spend our money, because the days of us eating off the vine as much as we have are coming to an end. So when I look at bills like this, and I want to read, I pulled the physical note, and I'm going to read exactly from it. And it says, additionally, this bill exempts the corporation from payment of, number 1, all state, county, and municipal sales tax and use taxes. 2, all state, county, and local ad valorem taxes. And 3, any other taxes levied by a county, municipality, or other political subdivision of this state, including license and excise tax. This bill will reduce potential receipts to the state general fund and the education trust fund, county and municipal funds by an undetermined amount. So what are we projecting the total cost of this project to be?
Probably, I think I heard him talking in terms of 160 million, somewhere in that range.
We've reported for weeks about legislation seeking changes to the Alabama Ethics Code. House Bill 227 from Representative Matt Simpson would revamp the code and reorganize how potential offenses are investigated and prosecuted. Today, that bill died in the Senate Judiciary Committee. Ultimately, members were uncomfortable moving forward with such a far-reaching bill before more revisions could be made.
I believe strongly that the Ethics Commission has a role in this state. I believe strongly that the Ethics Commission serves a function and serves a purpose, and that if it's an ethics violation, there's a difference between the bad and the you shouldn't do that. If it's a you shouldn't do that, it shouldn't be a threat of having 20 years over your head. It should be a civil violation. It should be a punishment to the extent of pretty hefty punishment. I'm all for it. If you cross the line, then you have sanctions, you have punishment, you should be prosecuted. It's only fair just let people know where the lines are.
There were many of us here when that last ethics bill was passed, and we argued that many things were not clear, that it was left open for various interpretations. And I know that I personally, when I catch something anywhere, it should be clear, even if you have to repeat it in the legislation.
I think this conversation will continue, and I suspect we'll have House members, hopefully, and senators that will be engaged in further discussion so that we will see this bill next year. And I want to thank you publicly for all of your efforts. I know, as I said yesterday, you've taken a lot of heat, lots of different sides, and a man of integrity, and I appreciate you.
Later in the day, lawmakers passed a resolution allowing leaders to engage national consultants on analyzing Alabama's ethics code and proposing revisions. That will likely happen over the off-season. The Senate today gave final passage to legislation aimed at simplifying the chain of command when it comes to medical cannabis. House Bill 390 from Representative Danny Crawford spells out that the Medical Cannabis Commission is the primary entity with the responsibility to approve and regulate medical marijuana licenses, and the Department of Agriculture and Industries can assist in that work. The bill wasn't controversial, but it sparked a conversation on the Senate floor about frustrations over continued delays with the medical marijuana process.
This is just a simple bill that helps the state of Alabama, the Department of Ag and Industries, and Rick Pate, I understand, would be very appreciative if we would be able to pass this.
I'm sure he would.
It's clean.
In the budget that we sent over to the governor, there's a few $1 million out of our taxpayer money going to lawyers to prevent or fight or develop. In any case, we're not getting any licenses until that gets done. So something we did or something somebody did has been incorrect, and just abandoning it and just leaving it on its own devices with us left holding the money bag is not an appropriate answer.
I had a piece of legislation, Senator Melson had a piece of legislation. It couldn't get any traction because there's just the vision of too much money involved, and people let greed get in the way of trying to do what's right and what's best for the people of this state.
Let's take a look at other notable legislation receiving final passage today. House Bill 73 from Representative Philip Pettis and Senator David Sessions sets a cap at how much local property values can go up or down, in effect limiting tax increases. I'll talk with Senator Sessions about this bill later in the show. Senate Bill 135 from Senator Andrew Jones and Representative Chip Brown sets up a pilot program to focus on veterans' health care and specifically mental health care. House Bill 66 from Representative Chip Brown and Senator David Sessions would require accurate labeling of seafood so it is clear whether products are from overseas. House Bill 82 from Representative Mike Shaw and Senator April Weaver increases penalties for falsely reporting a crime. This was born out of the Carly Russell case in Hoover last year. And House Bill 479 from Representative Rex Reynolds is the first allocation of Alabama's opioid settlement funds. They'll go toward addiction prevention, treatment, and other such efforts. And big news on the government transparency front. Governor Kay Ivey today signed into law Senate Bill 270 from Senator Arthur Orr and Representative Cynthia Allman. This amends Alabama's Open Records Act to require government agencies to respond to public information requests in a more timely manner. Alabama has for decades had one of the weakest open records laws in the country, making it difficult for news media and citizens to access public information. Upon signing the bill, Ivey said, quote, "This law protects government against overly burdensome requests while meaningfully improving fairness, access, and the people's right to timely insight into how their government works," end quote. The newest member of the Alabama legislature was in the House today. Gina Ross, the newly elected representative from District 27, made her first appearance on the House floor and was asked to speak. You'll remember Ross from her years of running Alabama's first-class pre-K program as Secretary of Early Childhood Education.
And I also want to say I'm excited to go to work for District 27 and the people of Alabama. I've missed it. I've missed it. This feels very comfortable in a sense. It's a little overwhelming to see all of you at one time. I'm kind of used to looking at you one-on-one begging for things across your desk, but for children and families. But I'm extremely looking forward to the work I think that can be accomplished in working with the leaders, Leader Stadhaden and Leader Daniels. I've worked with him on many projects in the past and look forward to carrying that again. So with great energy and enthusiasm, I'm glad to be here and glad to get to work. Thank you.
Welcome back, Representative Ross. We'll try to have her on the show maybe next week. Coming up after the break, I'll sit down with Senator David Sessions to talk about his property tax bill, seafood labeling, and medical marijuana. We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts.
The Vine and Olive Colony was an 1817 settlement of colonial French expatriates near present-day Demopolis. The settlers, mostly white refugees of the Haitian Slave Rebellion, had been granted the lands by the U.S. Congress in an ill-conceived plan that they plant them with grapevines and olive trees. Although little remains of the French presence, their descendants still cherish their unique heritage.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. Joining me next is State Senator David Sessions from Grand Bay. Senator, thanks for coming on the show.
Glad to be here, Todd.
I didn't say Mobile, I said Grand Bay. I got it right.
You got it right. Grand Bay, Alabama.
Well, we're almost done. The session is almost complete. Maybe one more day to go. We're really kind of waiting to see what the leadership says. But you've had a lot of interesting legislation this time around. That's why I wanted to have you on. Had a bill on the floor today, actually. But let's start with the property tax cap bill. This started really before the session even got going. You were talking about this issue kind of cropping up from your constituents. Talk about what this bill does and why it was necessary.
Yeah, you know, it came up in caucus meeting way prior to the legislative session beginning. A lot of people have been getting hit with 20 and 30% increases. I spoke to revenue commissioners that wasn't really happy with having to hit their constituents with those kind of increases year after year. They were upset about it. You know, we had homeowners that were getting 50% increases in 1 year. And we just felt like we needed to temper that growth because, you know, with inflation going strong, you know, the price of gasoline up, the price of groceries up, everything going up, and then all of a sudden, you know, they get hit with a 50% increase on their homeowner's property tax. Well, you know, it can be a stress on people's finances. You know, you're looking at insurance rates going up every year, it seems like, and you know, I just felt like our property taxes need to be something that could be stable and count on a stable increase, and it also protects from a large decrease, because if you go a little slower going up, when you have those really bad downturns like in 09 and 10, the shock won't be as bad.
I see. So, like specifically, it sounds like you're kind of putting guardrails on the process, but specifically, what are those guardrails and what can homeowners expect?
Yeah, well, you know, Class 2, Class 3 properties, which is, you know, our farmland, you know, and our homes, you've got a 7% cap, which it means in any 1 year it cannot go up over 7%. Even if the appraised value goes up over 7%, it can only go up that. You know, there's an opportunity if, say it was to go up 10%, but the next year it doesn't go up but 1%, the revenue can still catch up. They have that 3% left over, so they would be available to get max out the appraised value. And I think what was happening in the state of Alabama, we had a deficit in homes, and we were having a lot of growth. We've done a good job with our economic development. We've got businesses coming here to conduct business, but we needed homes, we needed buildings, we needed structures. and when we were at a deficit, the premium, the cost of those homes have just skyrocketed. Well, you know, if a person buys that home and pays $300,000, they know they paid $300,000 for that home. But you've got an existing home sitting right beside it that's the same size that the homeowner may have been there for 20 years and only paid $50,000 for it when they bought it. And may not be able to get but $150,000 out of it, but yet they're going to be appraised at that same value, and it was really causing a strain on certain segments of the homeowners and population. Like I said, this was not a personal thing with me. My property taxes had not been going up like that, but I'd heard a lot of stories that they had. And, you know, I wanted to do something that would help all the taxpayers of this state. You know, so many times the people paying the taxes get kind of left out. You know, we take their money and we spend their money, but, you know, who's looking out for them? And that was kind of where this came from, and that was my goal.
It's an interesting way to put it, because it's not like property taxes were increased. It's that the value of the property goes up, and therefore the taxes go. So it's almost like a hidden tax increase in some ways. I do remember when it was in committee, and you had some critics come and speak on the bill to say, especially like education groups, to say, hey, look, by doing this, you're limiting the amount of revenue that we count on at the local level for their local school boards and their local schools. How do you respond to that kind of criticism?
Well, Todd, first off, we didn't cut anything. So an increase is not a cut. So we didn't take any revenue away. You know, the only thing that's going to take revenue away on a property tax or reappraisal is if the values go down. That's the only way it's going to, you know, be a decrease.
I see.
So I think with the 7% cap, like I said, it gives a more steady growth. So if you have 3 years at 7%, that's 21% increase in your property taxes. You know, I'm in business. If I could get a 3% increase in what sales of my goods every year, I'd be a happy person.
But also having that floor might also help schools if there is a downturn or something.
Well, that's what, you know, what I'm saying. If you go up 7% for 2 or 3 years and then all of a sudden you have an 8% decline in values, that shock is not going to be near as great.
So this bill has passed the legislature, on its way to the governor's desk, right?
I think if the House has concurred, there was an amendment on it, so if the House concurs, it will go to the governor.
Okay. Another bill you had on the floor today, talking about labeling of seafood. I know you've probably got some constituents who are fishermen and in the seafood industry, so talk about why this bill came about.
Well, you know, the imports in the fish and the shrimp are really hurting our domestic production. We have shrimp boats are tied up in my district. You know, they're being sold, they're being auctioned, being foreclosed on because they just can't make a living with the fuel prices so high and the shrimp being so cheap because of the imports.
So it's coming from China, it's coming from South China Sea?
Yeah, mostly Asian imports. And another thing is, you know, this was to deal with the restaurants telling the patrons where their food comes from. You know, if they want to sell Chinese sway, that's fine, but at least let the consumer know. Don't tell them it's whitefish from, you know, the Gulf of Mexico. Just some truth in advertising type thing to where, you know, they have to be able to tell a customer that, yes, this is sway from Asia, or if it's shrimp from Argentina, or if it's, you know, wild caught versus farm raised. And this also helps our catfish producers too. Gives them a little bit of a, you know, because our products are good. The Department of Agriculture pulls these products and they test them for chemicals and contaminants. And the only thing that is unsafe that they are pulling is the Asian imports.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I would like to know. I mean, if I'm I love seafood. I love going down to the coast and getting that fresh seafood.
You can't beat Gulf shrimp.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It scares me that we're going to lose all of our shrimpers.
I would pay a little extra for knowing that it's Gulf shrimp or bay shrimp, whatever it is. If it's, you know, and so is this going to get across the finish line, this bill?
I believe it will. I believe it does. Okay. It had an amendment too for the retail association because of the way they handle, imported and domestic products that was important to them. And I didn't feel like it really hurt the bill, because we actually have seafood that is U.S. seafood that may be shipped, a raw product, to another country and then processed and sent back. So
it's a little complicated.
Yeah, so those labels, may say U.S. seafood processed in Japan or China or, one of those other countries, and then be sold back. I mean, it's mostly in salmon, so is what you see it in. So,
yeah.
And we feel like we have good products here for consumption and want to try and help our industry stay viable.
Interesting. Last issue I want to ask you about is cannabis, medical marijuana. You had some legislation trying to kind of prod the process forward. I know Senator Melson, the original author of the cannabis bill, he had legislation. I think there were some other bills. And what I heard in committee, your committee, was just this frustration from you, from Senator Melson, from other lawmakers. It's been 3 years since that law was put into place. Obviously, tons of legal troubles, lawsuits, some, self-inflicted from the commission itself. So what can be done? I know these bills aren't going to become law, but what can be done from the legislature's perspective to actually achieve the result that y'all intended, is to get these products to market?
I do believe we're going to have to dive into it in the off session, but I don't think it will get out of court before next session begins. And most states that have approved medical cannabis have had to go back and have a legislative fix, so to speak, to get those things up and running. I think we tried to put the guardrails in to protect Alabama businesses. That was our intent as a legislature, for it to be Alabama nurserymen growing these products, to be Alabama businesses putting in the processing and the dispensaries, and I think it kind of, I guess a lot of money perhaps got involved and kind of clouded the views of too many, and you had out-of-state corporations coming in that probably
you can say that again.
probably really shouldn't be eligible to get these licenses, especially on the integrated level, which, I'd have thought today perhaps we should just revisit the whole thing and scrap it and issue a few more cultivators and a few more processors and not have integrators. Just do away with that segment of it whatsoever, because that seems to be the segment that the commission can't get right. Is the integrated.
Because you talk about money, and that's kind of the thing, right? That's worth millions and millions of dollars, which is why if someone did not get a license, they go to court and fight their way. So I understand that, why somebody would do that. But let me just ask you, so let's just say that the legislature did start over or did pass something. Wouldn't that just generate more lawsuits? I mean, how
do you get out of it?
Yeah.
And I think, my legislation, particular piece I had, probably would have come closer than anything, because it was going to expand it some, issue more license, in which I made the statement, we didn't pass this for companies to get rich and make money. We passed it for medicine, to take the place of some opioids, to take the place of morphine, take the place of Dilaudid, to use medical cannabis as a medication. And, unfortunately, it hasn't, like you said, it's been 3 years and we haven't had the first prescription.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's something to watch, and I certainly want to have Mr. McMillan back on soon to talk about this. But, they can't say a lot because of the court cases, so it is a frustrating issue. Well, look, one more day of session. I appreciate you coming on the show, and we'll be watching till the last gavel.
Well, I'll be here. Thank you, Todd.
Okay. We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page.
Fort Toulouse site was declared a National Historic Landmark in 1960, today known as the Fort Toulouse-Jackson State Park. During the colonial period, Fort Toulouse acted as a commercial, religious, and diplomatic frontier outpost for the French from 1717 until 1763. It was one of a series of forts built by the French to protect their holdings in French colonial Louisiana from British infringement during the 18th century. Fort Jackson played a major role in the Creek War of 1813 and 14 when General Andrew Jackson and the U.S. Army used Fort Jackson, built on the old site of Fort Toulouse. On August 9, 1814, after their defeat in the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, the Upper Creeks surrendered to the United States in the Treaty of Fort Jackson, effectively ending the Creek Wars. 19 million acres of Creek lands were thus open for settlement, resulting in Alabama becoming a state only 5 years later.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. Be sure to tune in tomorrow night at the same time for more coverage of the Alabama Legislature here on APT. For our Capitol Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.